This electronic lock means I no longer have to worry about losing my key or forgetting to lock up at night. It automates all of that for me. When your team is looking to improve your DORA metrics, there's a lot of steps that you'll need to take that are easy to overlook or forget completely. Well, that ends today. Today, we are announcing Sleuth Automations, a marketplace of workflow automation, pull request checks, notifications, and more to help your team improve your software delivery performance. Today, we'll be speaking with Etkin, CEO and co-founder of Sleuth, to find out what this automations marketplace is all about, how we've used it ourselves as we've developed it, and how you can use it to help your teams get even better. All this and more on this edition of Sleuth TV Live. Oh, no, it ruined the best part. Oh, that commercial was the best part. There's this part right at the end where it zooms in on the logo and then it turns into an animated logo. Oh, I forgot to update the timing, and so it got cut off. Well, you'll have to just go to YouTube and find that video or LinkedIn thing to show it, and we'll post it later. Anyways, sorry, it threw me all off. Anyways, welcome to Sleuth TV Live. I am your host, Don Brown, and we have a heck of a show. I should probably be a little bit PC there. We have a heck of a show lined up for you. My team specifically has been working on Sleuth Automations for months. We've been using it ourselves for years. It's finally coming out, and we are so excited to share it with you because we've been getting a lot of value out of it, and I think you'll get a lot of value out of it as you adopt DORA metrics, the DORA way of thinking, understanding how to improve your team, improve your efficiency. You need to be able to have tools to be able to do that, to implement the changes, and that's where today fits in. And this is stuff you just one click. Anyways, I don't want to steal from the thunder, but I'm really excited today. And it's not just going to be me. We're going to have Etkin, CEO, my co-founder, up here talking, doing some demos of it, showing you all the cool stuff that's involved. A lot coming up. But before I get too farther, again, welcome to the stream. If you are here, please feel free to use the chat. This is a live program. This isn't pre-recorded, so we're always looking for people to ask questions, interact, tell us what you like, tell us what you don't. Katie likes the intro, except it missed the best part. Oh, that hurts, it hurts. We spent so much time on that thing. Anyways, yeah, actually, that was the other thing. That intro was really fun because I have the project leader, actually, of Sleuth Automations is in town from Europe, and he helped me film all that. So that was kind of fun, little collaboration. It wasn't just me running around with a tripod this time. I actually had a little production team. Call him the director and producer. I don't know. Anyways, please feel free to chat. We love it. Welcome as well. Cindy, good morning to you. If you are watching this afterwards, please add a comment if there's something that you see that you like, any questions that you have. We'd love to answer it. As I said, we are passionate about this feature that we're launching today, Sleuth Automations. We've been using it. We've been loving it. We have so many ideas of where it can go. And the more we hear from you, the better it's going to be for everybody. So please feel free to reach out. Now, before I get into the content of today, I wanted to make a quick note, a correction, if you will. Turns out I was wrong, and this season of Sleuth TV Live, we're calling it season 3, is not 2 episodes, it's actually 3 episodes. So if you remember last week, we met with someone from the DORA team to talk about DORA metrics, talk about how they're awesome, how you can use it to make your team more awesome. Feel free to go to our Sleuth TV Live page on our homepage to watch that video, or you can find it in YouTube. And then today was launching Sleuth Automation. So it's not enough to know the metrics, you have to be able to improve them. And that's where Sleuth Automation comes in. And I thought that was it. But no, we have one more thing. And that is we are going to be meeting with DORA again, because as you see, the State of DevOps report for 2023 is going to be released later this month in September. And on October 12, I believe is the day, we are going to be having one of the researchers come on and to discuss the findings in detail. We gave you a sneak preview of that last week where he said, hey, here's something that's going to be in the report that no one knows about yet. The report's going to come out, and then we're going to have him or somebody from his team back on to talk about that report detail. So feel free to so stay tuned for that. We'll have a sign up if you want to be notified when that's going to happen. Again, I think it's October 12th. It's not put into stone, but that's the current plan. So anyways, lots of stuff going around DORA metrics, around software engineering and wanting to improve their team, improve their delivery efficiency. But all the metrics in the world aren't going to do anything unless you're able to act on them. And that's where Sleuth Automations comes in. Let's show the launch video for Sleuth Automations and then get right into the discussion.
Elite software teams demand great efficiency and developer experience. We're talking high output, reliability, and morale. What's their secret? They've hand-built a platform to power a continuous improvement loop. And now you can have that too. Sleuth is your platform to empower this continuous loop. Quickly pinpoint areas needing improvement. Implement those improvements instantly with automations and automatically measure their impact. Continuously improve as elite teams do with Sleuth Automations.
Who knows now?
And here we go. We have Dylan on the show. So Dylan, welcome. Dylan is our CEO and co-founder of Sleuth. He has been working on this journey in some form since 2015. We've had him on the show before, so recurring guest. Welcome, Dylan.
Hello, Sleuth TV Live audience. It's great to be back.
And there's really no better occasion than this, the launch of Sleuth Automation, something that you and I have been working hard on. Remember us dreaming about it? It's actually been in place for a long time. Can you talk a little bit more about what Sleuth Automations is? Not so much what it is, but like why? What's the problem it's solving? Tell us the history there.
Well, like you said, you and I have been dreaming about this forever. I mean, from the early days of inception of what Sleuth could do for teams, it was never just a platform for understanding metrics. You and I come from a background of Atlassian where there was a real active participation in helping developers get their work done. And so the dream has always included the ability to allow people to very, very quickly adopt best practices. And that always looks like automation. If you look at removing toil from developers' experience across the years, that's like automating CI, it's automating deployments, it's you name it, it's automating, right? There's always been leaps forward by automation and taking best practices that dev teams use today or have used in the past as well, and making that one click and super duper simple. Well, quite obviously, that's the way that teams are going to use modern technology to improve, and that's what we've set out to build with Sleuth Automations.
Yeah, well said. Well said. There was actually, I know we were talking about like a marketing campaign. We still may do it, but because I think it'd be fun. It just sounds a little offensive. Where the tagline of the marketing campaign is "Developers get back to work," because there's so many things a developer does that gets in their way of work. Meetings, trying to keep stakeholders notified when certain things are happening, watching builds, babysitting builds until something, goes, and then they have to, and that just takes time. That's a distraction. The more I find personally as a dev, the more that I can just be focus on what I work on, then the better off I am, the happier I am, the more productive I am, the better output I have for the company. All that other stuff just really gets in the way.
Yeah. And I mean, like builds are a great example. I remember back in the day on the Jira team, we were using CI very early and we had all these tests. I mean, at some point we had too many tests. We probably had 50% of the work of a new feature was writing tests or fixing up old tests. But we had so many that they took so long to run that we invested a bunch of time and effort into being able to split them up and run them on like parallel machines and like bring back together the results, and probably spent a month of time writing the code to do that, and then every so often paying into the maintenance of that. And that's something that in this day and age people probably think, well, that's stupid, why didn't you just go click the button in Circle CI to split tests, and use more resources? It's a solved problem today, but back in the day it was a lot of toil and a lot of effort for all of us. And that's what we're doing with Automations Marketplace as well. It's tools that yesterday were likely bespoke and something that you had to build and spend a lot of time and build maintenance for. But today, just use one click and you think, why don't you just go to Sleuth? click that one button. Why would you spend time on that?
Yeah, exactly. It's things that you don't think about. I mean, there are a few things. We're going to get into it a little bit later where we talk about some of the different automations, what they are, how to use them, things like that. And some of them are quite big, like actual really revolutionize your workflow. But some of them are just little things. They're little things that if they save you a minute, two, three a day, that adds up. A team of 10, team of 150, that adds up. And it's easy to not think about that. But once you just take that quick little moment and, again, thanks to Sleuth Automations, you click once and you're done. Don't have to write YAML, don't have to any I know I'm getting into the demo, but the point is if you can improve your developer's experience quickly now, you're just going to be receiving dividends months, years in the future.
Yeah. And something you said there, I'd love to make a point on just because it's so powerful, which is the cultural identity of the way that your team works. Now, like people always ask, like, well, how do you build culture? And a lot of it's just by doing, you repetitively do a thing, but a lot of it is also around the shared rules that you guys come up with as a team. We never open a pull request with an empty description. We never deploy on a Friday, or we never deploy when there's an incident going on. It's an agreement of how we work together. I mean, it's the same sort of thing that you would do with like linters, where you say, "Look, we're going to conform to these code standards," and in that way, you are building culture because you're putting in place automation that says, "Here are the cultural boundaries of how we're going to work together as a team because we believe in its efficiency and we believe it's the right way to work." And so automations are really often the bedrock that you're building these developer cultures on. And it's a great way for new people who join your team to just understand implicitly this is how we work because robots are there to kind of, guide the way.
Right. Oh man, this was such a hard one to prepare for because there's so much I want to talk about, but I'm sure the people out there are saying, shut the hell up and show us what you actually did. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Dylan, to walk through what it is, kind of how it works, and give people a more tangible understanding of things.
Okay. And if I start to drone on, because I could also spend forever on this thing, you just stop me and we can move the thing forward. Um, is my screen showing right now? Okay. Well, this is it, folks. This is the automations marketplace right here. So marketplace.sleuth.io is where you're going to go. Don't worry, heaps of links inside of the application that you're used to today to get you here. And I'll show you some in-app instigations to get you here as well. But as you can see, very clean. I'm impressed as hell with the whole team, honestly, at how it looks. I love it. I think it's very visually attractive, but the power is within what we're offering here too. So, first thing you can notice, it's really easy to understand what we're adding. I will say in this last month, we've really hit a stride. I think we added 10 new automations in just the last month alone. So, these will always be changing because there's new things coming down the road. We've had some automations that are also, we just think are super cool and other people have used as well. So, you'll have some recommended automations. But I guess let's zoom it out a real higher level. And what are these things meant to do? Like Don and I were saying before, it's to help your team improve. It's to help your team do some of the things that they need to do from a cultural standpoint, from a guardrail standpoint, in order, using things to instigate a behavior in a different way. And so what you've got here is the different types of notific or automations that we can provide. And we've identified four different types. We might find more in the future, but right now, four different types really seem to encapsulate a lot of the tools and the things that teams were doing already today. And these are PR checks. In other words, um, thresholds and guardrails that will stop you from being able to merge a pull request if you are not running into those sort of conditions. And there's a ton of these. We'll walk through a few examples a little later on in the show, but things like your pull request description can't be empty or your PR title requires an issue key. This is kind of in the realm of what Don was saying, where it's pretty simple, pretty targeted. You might have had a team member in the past that would remind other people to do this, and everybody's like, gosh, that person's a little too pedantic. They get to take a chill pill now, and the robot gets to do this work for you. And you won't miss any anymore either. Another category that we've identified is this idea of notifications. And, this isn't new. But this is what teams are using these things today. These are what teams are building today, or using different parts of software to do. And so the idea is get in front of the right people at the right time in the right place with information that will be useful and can nudge you in a direction. So things for a draft PR can't be open for more than a certain number of days. Well, you're approaching those numbers of days, get a notification so that you understand that you need to turn that thing from draft into a real PR, and get things done, right? Um, One of the things that our customers at Sleuth really love are goal notifications, where you set a goal towards a certain kind of metric, and before you hit that metric, at like the 85% mark, you're getting a notification that says you might want to get on this. So, in other words, using a notification to nudge your behavior into a different direction that you want your team to be working in. We have what we call actions, and this one's got a lot coming up. So you can see there's only a few here right now, even though the ones that we provided are actually getting used quite a bit. But the idea is it's a simple if this then that. So you have conditions that happen in Sleuth, like I deploy to production, or I deploy to a staging environment, or we're within an incident in our staging environment, and then you choose to do something based off of that, like adding a comment to an issue in an external system, opening a PagerDuty incident, transitioning an issue to something. There's a whole heap of ones that we'll talk about later in the show around pull request modification that you can do with an action. And then finally is the sort of like the encapsulation of these big things that teams do. So workflows. Imagine this is taking a whole bunch of notifications, it's taking some checks, it's taking some actions, and it's gluing them all together to say, this is how the best teams work, and choose to progress their work from concept through to reliable launch. My favorite one here is the Slack-based deployment approvals. The Sleuth team has been using the beta version of this for, I think, like 2 years at this point. And what we do is we say we deploy to staging. We want to target the individuals who are a part of that deploy, ping them in Slack, give them the opportunity to say, are you ready for this thing to go to production or not? They take a quick look, they give it a thumbs up inside of Slack, and then Sleuth is smart enough to know if it hits a threshold of approvals, it will go and instigate the build approval off in Circle CI and take things out to production. Again, it's a workflow that says we want people to smoke test in a pre-production environment, and we want people to understand when their code is about to ship. And that's something that, those are the guardrails. This is the sort of cultural things that we're saying as a team we want to do, and we have automations enforcing that. I've been talking forever. I'm gonna take a deep breath for a minute. Okay, I'll keep going because I think Don's mic isn't working. Um, all right. One thing I will also show quickly then is how this interacts with Sleuth today. So basically, what you're going to do is you're going to get the same metrics that you've always seen before. So if you're a new Sleuth customer, you're going to come along and you're going to set up your systems. We're very quickly going to give you a 30-day baseline. And in the past, what we would do is just sort of show you this graph and be like, good luck. Off you go, do the next thing. Go find what you could possibly do to improve. Talk to your team, have a retro or something along those lines. That was never the intent. We knew that we could do so much more. And so what we'll do is pop up with something like this and say, your team looks like they've been struggling with your failure rate. Go ahead and view the automations for that. Oops. And that's going to take me to a new tab, which is not going to do what I wanted it to do.
Fun of live demos. I do have mic now,
Yeah,
by the way.
live demos.
Wrong mic. Now we got it.
Which is going to basically, oh gosh, I don't think there's any way to do that with not a new tab. Sorry about that, everybody.
Did you just sharing a tab? Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's basically going to take you over here into the marketplace and suggest to you the automations that can help your team with failure rate. And again, you're going to come in here, you're going to decide, okay, I want to try this thing. You're going to go over to Sleuth. You're just going to quickly select a project. You're going to say like, testing, and then bam, I can sit and I can install this thing and hit install and continue. And off I go. I have a new automation installed that says a PR can't be merged if an open PR exists that has a blocker label, and that blocker label is testing. It's that simple.
Right. So you actually just showed a couple different things. That one that you just finished showing is just how it is to add an integration, an automation. All you need to do is
Mhm.
press on it, maybe a couple parameters if that's applicable, and choose where. And you can target a project or a team. Is an interesting
Mhm.
point. Talk about that for a second.
Yeah. So some major concepts that we have in Sleuth are this idea of a project and a team. So you can almost think of it as like services versus the folks that are creating things. A lot of our customers orient around teams because their teams will work across a bunch of different services or they'll work across a bunch of different projects. Now, obviously, they like to have a service level view of things as well. It depends on your organization size. So some of these things you want to be able to target and say anything that ever goes into this service should conform to these sorts of rules and have this kind of workflow around the automations. And sometimes you want something very specific for a team. I'm trying to remember on maybe you can help me with this one. There was something like for ourselves as we were building this where we said, "Ooh, we want to do this PR check like right here." And then we realized actually we only want to do it per team. And ugh, probably putting you on the spot.
Yeah,
I don't
I
know if you
think the
remember which
way
one that
that
was.
I've been thinking about this is kind of team is how you try it out. So you have two
Mm,
people, and you're like, okay, let's try out some of these pull request checks. That's a contract that says the pull request can't be considered ready to merge until these things are done. The get commits are in the right format. It has a title with an issue key in it, things like that. You try it out on a team and you see if this is something you like, and then you would promote that to be now everything that touches this service has to follow this pattern. It allows you to kind of gently introduce things instead of having to commit to it all in.
right. Yeah. No, absolutely. And so the flexibility will show. Sorry again. Let's not go to Apple. That's for tomorrow. Um, they'll show inside of Sleuth under like the automations tab. So once we navigate here, we can see these are all the automations that the Sleuth team itself is using. And we have a live demo that's linked off the website. So if you want to investigate and poke around and see how we're using these things, obviously that's something you can do. But as we have built these over time, these are things that we wanted for ourselves. I mean, which is kind of one of the more fun things to be doing when you're building a developer tool is to say, uh, guys, we're doing this thing and it's kind of a pain in the butt. What if we delegated that toil off to the robots? And I'd say there's probably been like 4 or 5 instances of that where we hadn't even imagined some of these automations, and the dev team was just building these things and said, "I'm tired of doing this thing. I don't want to do it anymore. I'm building an automation and I'm installing it first thing." And they're so quick to build and get out there, and just it's super fun to watch them just like launch a thing, install it, and all of a sudden we have that part of our dev flow.
Yeah, I think that's an important point to be making here. We already talked about who's this for, forgetting to press my button. We just did a demo, and now I wanted to talk about kind of how we're using it because that's a really important point that you made, which is this isn't something where you and I were just like sitting down thinking, what's a feature that we could sell or something. This is something where we built a way to track your deployments and your pull requests, your work in progress, and then we learned about DORA metrics and said, perfect, we can measure those DORA metrics with all these things we built. And then without even thinking with our product hat on, just with our consumer hat on, we said we could more effectively build our own software if we put in place these automations. Things to automate the boring parts, to ensure consistency, to take hard problems and turn them into a one-click solution. These are things we built, and we built this a couple years ago. This isn't something that, yes, we're launching the marketplace now, but the underlying technology has been in there and even been used by some of our customers, even though we did nothing to promote it or talk about it for years.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, the concepts were there, and I always liken it to we built Lego 2 years ago, where we said, "Here's a bunch of blocks, and if you are willing to just get a set of blocks and you have a furtive imagination, you can do quite a number of things with these Legos." But we also probably stuck them on the bottom aisle, like 3 feet back from where the consumer would be able to reach their hand. So we did not make it overly obvious to people that this was a capability. And as I say, you needed to have a good imagination of to exactly how you would use these things. We had a little cookbook, but what we realized was that for you to have a journey of continuous learning where you are going to measure, experiment, remeasure, and like take a decision to either like continue with that experiment or start another. And you're going to do that over and over and over again. That the barrier to entry for automations or these experiments has to be near zero, right? It has to be not, I'm going to go think of all the possible things that I could possibly do. And I'm going to like, configure this YAML and make a pull request. And maybe I got the YAML wrong and I'm going to have to do another pull request. The power is in coming into a tool like this and saying, what are the things that the best teams have been doing over the last 20 years? Like, let me see the world, the menu of possibilities. And now from that menu, let me see what would fit my team specifically. And let's just try it. Let me like one click try this thing. I don't have to go get a senior developer to go work on the thing for 3 weeks. Instead, I'm gonna like install this thing. And the truth of the matter is with experiments, very often they fail. That's what you want them to do. You want to try it and think, that's not nearly as cool as I thought it was, but it doesn't hurt my heart at all to remove it because it cost me almost nothing to try it. And then when you
That's a
find that one that, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's a great point on just how important the easy part is, because a lot of these things, like for example, why don't you dive into a pull request check? It's one of the most useful ones. It's a tiny, tiny little thing, but it has saved me personally effort and toil because we have it. Do the one where issue key in the title. So what this thing does is it makes sure that when you have a pull request title, that there is an issue key in there and it goes out to a valid issue. This is important because in our team, we want to connect issues that we're doing all of our planning and higher level work with what's actually happening, the pull requests and then of course the deploys and so on. And the issue key in the title is an important link between those, a hygiene issue, if you will. Before this pull request check, I was having to go to developers and message them on Slack and say, hey, by the way, could you please make sure to put an issue title in there? And it was annoying. It sucked. I was having to be that annoying nag person who just looks like they're nitpicking. I mean, who wants the CTO of their company to be nitpicking their pull request titles? That just is dumb. But also I wanted it. And so I had to go do that. And by clicking the button and having this now enforced by the tool, the problem went away. Now the tool is what's telling them, hey, make sure to put this, otherwise your PR is not going to be green. And they, oh yeah, and then they'll just fix it. A whole class of annoying problems, weird interactions on Slack just went away because of this. And again, it was one click. Could I have written my own automation for it or my own script? Possibly. Or I just go to the marketplace and click install.
Yeah. I mean, I've got a great story around this one too, just because I rarely write code for Sleuth any longer, but somehow found myself in a position to try and just open a really quick fix. And I will admit that I kind of didn't conform to the dev team's best practices. I would just be like, well, I've got a hot minute, so I'm going to go do this thing. And I did my thing as normal. I created a branch, I whatever, this and that. And I went and opened a pull request. And lo and behold, who started bitching at me but Sleuth with a PR check. And I was like, why is this failing? It's obviously passing the tests. And I did not have an issue key. And I was like, you know what? Gosh, that's so terrible of me. Yes, I need to give people context as the why behind what I'm even trying to accomplish here, especially since I'm dropping in like some random commando trooper to like do this thing. There's like zero context around this. So I took a hot minute and created an issue and went and edited my pull request title and immediately saw the check turn green. And I was like, all right, you got me. And nobody had to call out the CEO for not following best practices, right? Because that doesn't always happen either.
Right, that's a great point. I mean, too often we think about like a team as developers that are focused on one thing, and this is all they're doing, so we don't really need this stuff because they all know what they're doing. But you forget, people are coming and going constantly. There's people that work in a cross-functional way, and they're touching this project, and then they're going out and going and helping another project, and then another one. They don't know all the different ways that the team works, all the tribal knowledge. The more that you can put it into something like this that gently reminds, hey, you need to have an issue key, or hey, we like our PR descriptions to have content or conform to this pattern or whatever, the easier it is for new people who just don't know.
Yeah. And I didn't feel hurt. I didn't have anybody have to slap my hand. It seemed completely reasonable, and it didn't take me a lot more time. And I understood what the culture that was that we were trying to accomplish through automation.
So let's dive in since we're demoing, and I know we didn't talk about this on the script, but why the hell not? Can you go to our pull requests and open up a pull request and show these checks in action?
Well, live demos, why not?
Yeah, live demos, why not? Go into GitHub and go into a pull request checks, and at the bottom, hopefully they're all succeeding.
Right.
It'll be a way that you can click on it and then see what the pull request statuses
Well,
are.
once again, hold on, I'm gonna have to take this and load it up into this tab because I've done share tab only. Here we go.
I can drive as well.
So
Oh, there we go.
here's an example of one that was merged recently. And oh, do we not see the checks on that one?
GitHub
All
seems
right.
to hide them.
Like I said, you said I'll show you an open pull request then.
Yeah.
Um, there we go. Uh, so passing all of those checks. So as you could see in Sleuth, well, I can't jump back to it really quickly. Tab wise, next time I'm going to share my browser, not my tab. But yeah, you can see all those Sleuth checks we're passing. I think this is going to open up in a new tab. No, it's going to take me to the application. Awesome.
You know what? I'm going to
Uh,
take over and show. So
okay.
we have this PR, and you can see it's got a lot of stuff. You can see that there are checks. Sleuth is one of them. So we also, actually, there's another thing, which we're probably not going to have time to talk about, but deployment locking is one of my most favorite features of Sleuth, where it can make sure that you can kind of control when PRs are merged or not based on an incident that's happening, based on a single file policy, whatever. Anyways, so if you go to details, you'll go to the part in Sleuth, and here's where you can see all the different checks that our team uses ourselves. So we want our descriptions not to be empty. We want the title to match a certain pattern so that we have consistency. It should have an issue key. If there's any checkboxes in the PR description, they should be checked. So sometimes developers will create checkboxes in it saying, oh, I need to also do this. I need to also do this. They'll do that when it's in draft phase. They'll want to make sure that those are all checked before it's shipped. And so this PR just checks for them. This check looks for them. This one isn't interesting. This is actually why I wanted to bring it up. PR cannot have more than X changed files. So there's a class of these things, such as can't have more than this many files, this many more changes, things like that, which are trying to limit your batch size. Now, not every time is it possible to follow this policy. Sometimes you're doing, let's say there's a new version of your code formatter and it changes a bunch of files and you need to do a PR, which has thousands of lines of change. You can also ignore these. You see there's this little ignore button. You can click on this. Let's see what happens in this case. And it goes into the ignored. So your developers still have a way to get around it, but they have to consciously take a step to do the ignore to encourage, because as we found with the DORA report, batch size is one of the biggest things your team can do, controlling the batch size to have a healthy team that delivers on its objectives. And this type of tool helps nudge in that direction.
Yeah, and I'll make the point too, and this is coming. This is something that we have like teed up, and that's coming in our follow-on release. But uh, organizations want to understand how these are impacting the things that they're doing. So, like, is it actually working or not? And I think ignore is a great statistic. You want to understand how many times did this thing fire? So, in other words, like, how many times is it kind of saving our bacon? And then how many times do I have an exception? Is this something that we follow all the time, or is this something that, we're ignoring a lot of the time? And understanding how those have actually turned around and materially impacted your DORA metrics is the way to understand if they're actually making a difference or not.
And that's the loop, right? It's not just about
Yeah.
measuring how you're doing, and it's not just about putting in things to save you time. It's connecting those two things together. So you're measuring, you're making improvements, going back to the measuring to see, did that help? Did that hurt? Let's try something else. And it's that loop, a continuous improvement loop that I found to be really valuable in our team.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer, right? It's performance work. It's the same thing you would do for performance work. Now, I'm sure you've had somebody that's worked for you who does the I'm using my woo woo gut feel about like what I think might be causing a performance problem. And anybody who's been in industry for any amount of time knows that that is doomed to failure, right? Like what you petty little human think might be slowing the computer down, you're wrong. So what do? You measure. You put enough instrumentation in the system such that you can really understand where the time is being spent, what is the bottleneck, and then you try something. You try and make a fix. You fix a query to be more efficient, or you reduce a network call, or you remove a loop, or whatever it is that you do. And then you use that same measurement to decide if you had efficacy in your change. And you just keep on that until you get things where you want them to be.
Well said. Well said. We talked about pull request checks. I could go through these. These are one of my favorite things. They're one of those little small things, but I think make an oversized impact for what they are. Maybe share one of your favorite workflow tools, automations that we have here, and talk us through that.
I have two.
Can you
Actually, I'll
drive,
start
or
with
do
the
you want
easy
me
one.
to drive?
Oh, okay. Am I driving? Hold on a
Yeah,
second.
yeah.
Let me jump back to one of these days.
I'm
gonna
sure
share it
people want to
again.
see us wave our hands a lot because that is exciting.
Yes.
But
No, that's the most fun.
it's
Okay.
kind of like
So the
show me
one
the
that
money.
I think is the coolest, or one of the coolest, is this idea of auto locking a target project when an environment has an incident. Now, I've worked on pretty high performing, fast moving teams for at least the last decade, and this is something that we have always done to varying degrees of usefulness. And so, we're running a SaaS service. Unfortunately, something goes wrong either because we deployed some new code that caused an incident, or there's been a spike in usage, or you name it, any of the number of things that can go wrong and that send you into an incident. And one of the worst things that can happen when you're in an incident is that you introduce more change into the system, and you maybe trigger off like whatever your automated build process is, and you start like cycling your services and those sorts of things, which I mean can make something so much worse. I've had that happen time and time again where you're under duress and you've got all these services that are pegged 100% CPU, and somebody started a deploy and now you're redeploying and you've got things with unwarmed caches and you're like, it's so much worse now, right? And so most of these teams, we've instigated some sort of thing that says, guys, just don't deploy something new when we're in an incident. That's like a no-brainer, but it's so hard. So we've gone with like the, hey, let's be good citizens. Everybody should watch this channel. And the SRE team is going to say at channel, guys, don't do a deploy. We're dealing with a thing. Or you're like, hey, you should have a IE on status page or your pager duty, and just know that this is something you shouldn't do. It never works. None of those things. I mean, they work to a certain degree, and something like this is so easy, right? We connect up in Sleuth. You say, for us, we use PagerDuty, and we use GitHub for pull requests. When there's a PagerDuty incident, all of those pull requests are going to get a lock. There's going to be a notification sent to the channel that developers are watching around deploy notifications that says things are locked right now because we're in an incident. Like, we'll let you know when you can go back to normal behavior. And then the incident closes. Immediately Sleuth knows there's no lag in between where somebody's like doing a thing and it was actually open for 20 minutes, but now it's not. And it goes and tells everybody all clear, and their pull requests can be merged again. Problem solved.
Yeah, that's a good one. There's a bunch of those around that. I mean, again, I almost wanted to get into deployment logging, but I want to share one of my favorites. I'm going to start with kind of something similar to what you say, and then I want to sneak in an extra one. And that is the auto promote soak deployments if the environment's healthy. It's kind of a mouthful to say, but think about it this way. This is continuous deployment made safe and cheap. Like that's amazing. So continuous deployment, for those who don't know, this is where continuous delivery is where you have your software ready to deploy. Continuous deployment is where you actually deploy it on, say, each PR merge all automatically. Now that sounds terrifying, right? It's easy to script it and to do it, but you'd never want to do something like that, because what if something goes wrong? What if it causes a problem? This helps a lot with that. I'm not going to say it solves the whole problem, but this one, auto promote when it's unhealthy, how this works is you have multiple environments. Let's say you have a staging environment, or maybe you have a canary environment, something like that. you deploy to that automatically. Sleuth will watch that environment because Sleuth does impact tracking per environment. So it'll look for your Sentry errors jumping, it'll look for PagerDuty alerts, it'll look for your database CPU going high, anything like this that might indicate it's unhealthy. You give it a soak period. So you could do it 5 minutes, 10 minutes, something like that. After that time period, then it will automatically kick off the build to send it to the next environment. But if it detected any kind of problem in there, it just stops in its tracks. And we've been doing this one for at least 2 years here at Sleuth. And it has saved our bacon where we push something out and it caused all kinds of errors in Sentry, and that triggered a stopping of the pipeline. But it also saves us in the other way where the 95% of the time you want it to go all the way to production. And if you have a human always having to press that button, they forget about it. They go to lunch. They, get distracted by something. They have to sit there and babysit, which is wasting their time. It kind of takes that whole problem away, but with the safety of still tracking health and not just automating it. It's pretty easy to install. I'm going to click the install button just to show you, but you figure out where your code deployment is. You figure out what build you want to kick off when the environment is there, and of course where you want to install it and how long you want it to soak. It could be hours, it even could be days, and then the environment. So you can say when it goes to staging, go to production, kick off this build after this time. A very cool little thing that if you wanted to look for a tool to automate your workflow that incorporates health in it, depending on the team size, you're easily talking tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars. This software gets very expensive, very complicated. And you can kind of have a lightweight version. I'm not going to say it has all those features, but a lightweight version with a couple clicks. It's changed our team and how we work. And no matter whatever happens, I'm going to want this type of capability every single time. This has changed my expectations of what software delivery should be.
I think that's really, really powerful. And I'll also say that the other cool thing is that you can just adorn your existing tool set with that information too. So, we already had decided long ago that we were using Circle CI, that we were using, that we had a certain setup with our environments, and that, we have any number of things that sort of change how we define health over time. It was Sentry, and then maybe it's some Datadog metrics, and maybe it's PagerDuty as well for a given environment, depending on how we're using it. And being able to say, well, let's just take all those different things, and then we want to add this workflow to those tools, and not have to get a specific tool that's going to support that or build that into Circle CI that then has some sort of connection into Datadog or whatever. Has been super powerful for us.
Now, I know you and I could talk forever about all these different ones. We're really excited. This is not something that ends today. We have new ones. I think even just a couple minutes ago, I was seeing a dev saying, okay, I have this new automation that's ready to go. Things are just continually happening on this front. But let's bring it back into a little bit more of a actionable way for the audience out there. So let's say we have a developer watching this saying, this looks really interesting for my team. We don't use Sleuth today. So, is this for me, or do I need to now go and deal with all this, figure out all this stuff, or how do I get started? What would you tell that person?
I mean, I would say give it a go. We have worked really hard to make onboarding inside of Sleuth, especially if you have all of your credentials that you need, to be a very, very quick prospect. So, within 5 minutes, you can have DORA metrics and baselines set up for like the main repository that you're working out of. And once you've set that up, you can browse over to the Automations Marketplace and start to play with some of these tools. So, within a very, very short window, a very low lift amount of time, you can start playing with these automations right now.
Yeah, not only is it the install of them is just one click, but what about what about this person out there that says, okay, I've seen the screenshots of you sharing. Can I look at this automations, or do I have to sign up for Sleuth first to even get a feel for this? Talk about that.
Yeah. So the Automations Marketplace is public. And again, for us, it's kind of doing double duty. First off, we want to obviously give customers value and allow them to use these things. But secondly, we think of it as a repository of best practices for teams that's just going to keep growing and growing. So, even if you're not a Sleuth user and you're just trying to understand what are some of the best practices that a high performing team can use and that I could adopt, where can I help myself in relation to the DORA metrics? And and things, practices that I could do that would help each of those. You can browse that without a Sleuth account and just sort of get an understanding of what the realm of possible is.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think I also want to make this point because we explicitly, when we were building it, the first version of the marketplace was built into Sleuth. You had to be use a Sleuth customer. You had to be all set up, and then you could check out the marketplace. And we said, no, we think there's more value here. We think this is something that people want to, they might find some value just reading through some of these best practices. They might want to know what they would be getting before they dive into the Sleuth world. And so this is, as you said, this is completely public. You go to marketplace.sleuth.io and you can see this exact thing. In fact, if you are on the Sleuth homepage right here, you will see two links that I wanted to highlight because I think they're really important. One is the marketplace. This is what we've been talking about already. Again, this is sleuth.io, where you can see the different automations that we have. You can look at our pull request checks, notifications, workflows. And again, more and more are being added every single day. I think we're at like 2 to 3 a week is our current pace right now. And we have some super ones, exciting ones planned. The other thing, and this is something that I want to show you because it's so many people miss it, but it's one of my favorite things that we also do, which adds more engineering work, but I think it's worth it. And that is a live demo. You mentioned earlier that if you want to see how our team uses this automations, you can. Well, check it out. If you click on that live demo link, you can see Sleuth as it's being used for our team with all of our production data. This is not a test account. This is not a bunch of demo data to make our tool look good. This is our raw and real information. And not only do we do sales demos off of it, but I'm showing you it here. Anyone can look at this. This has caused a little bit of problem in the past where I'm at a conference and I'm showing off Sleuth and I'm showing it's our data and I look and our failure rate is 20% because we have a flaky test that's falsely giving a certain kind of signal, and it's embarrassing. And I know the dev team has more than once had me send a little angry little message to their channel. Guys, what the heck are you doing? Fix this, fix this. It's making me look bad on my demos. And you'd think that we'd learn from that, but we don't because we think transparency and openness is that important. So again, you want to look at what our metrics are. You want to see how we're configuring things, what impact sources that we've set up, database, CPU, memory, PagerDuty, things like that. And of course, then there's the automations. You want to see what automations our team uses today. You can see that we use a bunch of them. We're building this because we think it's valuable. We're building this because our customers have said that they want that. So if you want to check that out, this is where you would go next. One thing that we did skip over before I want to get too much farther down is the point that this is not just something we've been using. We've been having customers use this as well and have gotten some good feedback from them. Can you say more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. One of our larger customers actually had gone all in on the Slack-based notifications, and that was even before the marketplace, and that was back in the Actions days. But like that became basically how they build software. So, they wanted to culturally say that everybody's going to take something to a pre-production environment. We want everybody to understand when their stuff is shipping. We want them to be present to say, yes, I'm willing to promote this to another environment. And that's had a huge impact across their organization and, means that Sleuth has become a real integral part of like how they're actually taking things through to production. We did have a whole bunch of beta customers that I will shout out to and say thank you for your usage and your feedback while we built this tool. One of them sort of gave us the quote of, "We've been focused on the Slack notifications during our beta testing, and we love how Sleuth has been helping teams stay on top of stalled PRs, notifying them of urgent review requests, and nudging them towards hitting their lead time goals. We're excited to start using some of the PR checks that enforce the best practices that have already been working for us." And that was one of our friends over at Article who gave us that quote. And we have also, in the realm of being open and transparent, have shown how many folks are installing what. So it's very early days, and you can see that in the marketplace because obviously we've only just brought things out of beta. But it gets you a sense of which automations are being useful for each team. Because I will point out that not all of these things are going to be useful for everybody, right? Like you got to find the things that fit the team that you've built and the way that you want to work. So, if you find 2 to 3 to 5 automations that help your team, I think that's winning. right? And it's not going to be the full set of like all the automations that Sleuth has to offer.
Great point. Great point. Before we go, because I know we're already over time and
Are
I
we?
have a hell of a time on this one because there's so many things I want to talk about. We've been working
I
on
wanted
this
to
for
mention something
months.
too. I know I have one more thing I
Okay,
want to kind of
we
mention.
both get a one more thing. I have a one more thing.
Okay.
I will let go. You go first because you were the guest, and then I'll do mine and we'll wrap it up and talk about what's coming. So go,
Very
give us your
kind.
one more thing.
Okay, my one more thing is if you are a tinkerer and you are interested in some of the things that these can do, but we haven't exactly captured the blueprint that you want. What I will say is this is all backed by a really powerful engine underneath. It used to be called Sleuth Actions. I think it's called Automations now. But very soon we will have that coming to the marketplace where you can take the YAML that defines all the possible conditions and all the things that we can do, and we'll let you drop that in via the UI. But you can do that today as well through a YAML file and configuration. So if you're a tinkerer and some of the capabilities that we provided here have sparked your imagination, please God, tinker away. We're tinkerers too, and that's why we built it in this really easy to configure fashion, because we want to be able to add value almost instantaneously, where we can take the Lego blocks and build a space shuttle and then give that to everybody. And I'm sure that there's folks out there that want to do that too. So don't hold back. Reach out to us too if you're missing something, because we would love to hear from you.
Right. Yeah, that's a good one last thing because that's exactly what I wanted to show. So instead of just talking, I will show.
Nice.
Don't do it, but show. So you're sitting here in the Sleuth homepage and you're like, okay, I checked out your marketplace. You have some interesting things, but I want it to work slightly different. Like I want it to be only do an environment drift notification in this one particular case. Or I want to do a PR with database migrations must include SQL output. This is one that we created because this is something we needed, where if you include a database migration, you should print out the DDL in the PR for reviewers to understand what's actually happening. And you say, that's kind of right, but it's not quite right. I want to fix it. Here's how you can do that. You're in Sleuth here, and this is still a little bit hidden. We're working on making this a little bit more obvious where you can view the source of an automation, because actually every automation we have right now is backed by YAML, and you can actually do this in this way. So if you go up here to help and you go into actions, it is still actions in the UI, you'll see that there is a YAML format. So the file is called sleuth.rules.yaml. You put this file in your repository, Sleuth will pick it up and automatically run these rules. Now a rule, I'm not gonna go into a lot of detail other than to say a rule has triggers. So that's some kind of event that starts it. It has conditions on whether that target object, a deploy, a pull request, is applicable to this rule. And then it has actions, things that are executed once you've determined that this is a valid thing. So for example, automatically promote a healthy staging deployment. So the implicit trigger here is when code is deployed. And if it's on staging and it is healthy, then the action is to auto approve and add a deploy message to the Slack thread. Now, you might say, oh, ours is called staging. It's called something else. Or I want it to also soak for a certain amount of time. I want to do whatever else you can. Down here, you can see all the different conditions for the expression language that's provided, because note the conditions are provided as an expression language. All the variables, what objects that they're targeting, what kind of matching you can do. You can do it via glob matching. So for example, a PR has a file that matches this pattern, then something. And then the actions, what can you do? You can monitor drift, send messages when drift goes over or under, or execute actions actually. You could send a webhook and then do whatever the heck you want on the other end. You could add Slack messages. You can modify your issue tracker. So you can say when this happens, transition the related issues from merged to shipped or something. Like so many things you can do. So I would say start at the marketplace, see if there's something there that you like, one click install. If you are one of those behind the scenes power user type folks, know that you can also do all of that yourself in YAML and so much more. It's really just, you're limited by your imagination and of course the code. And so that's why you need to let us know if there's something that we want us to do that it doesn't. We're constantly adding this. We're getting a lot of feedback from customers right now. In fact, I could go through the automation marketplace and say, this one's from a customer, this one's from a customer, this one's from a customer. That's what we want. We want this back and forth, all with the goal of helping your team improve your metrics, improve your team, and really it's not about metrics, it's about your team. Improve your team, let developers get focused on what they need to, automate the boring stuff, get all that other stuff out of their way, get rid of the toil, get rid of the gardening, get rid of the babysitting that needs to happen. Let your devs get back to writing and delivering great software.
Well said.
That's my speech for the day of what we're doing. So thank you very much, Dylan, for coming on board. I hope you get just a taste of what Sleuth Automations has to offer, how we found it valuable, how our customers have found it valuable. Again, all this is public. You can check out the marketplace yourself right now. You can give it a go right now, a couple clicks, and you're now checking PRs, you're now implementing workflows by team, by project, a lot of possibilities, and even more to come. We hinted at this. We're adding in the ability right now, actually, we have a project so that you can do more write actions. So for example, maybe you want to automatically create a PR or merge a PR under certain situations or approve a PR, and you want the tool to do that for you. That's all on the table as an optional thing. And we're looking at adding some of those kind of capabilities. So this is doing nothing but expanding and nothing but growing, again, to help your team improve itself. Use the metrics to see how you're doing, but the tools to help you improve. Any final words, Dylan?
No, you've said it well. Thank you. This has been fun. We've been working on this for so long, and it's exciting to show. And I hope everybody loves it as much as we do. So yes, I guess I do have some final words, actually.
Yes, we've definitely been working. And again, this is something that's easy for you to try. Give it a try. Give us feedback. We're always here. You can contact us from the website. We even have now a chat thing you can communicate. We have chat in the product. We're always looking for more interactions. So Kyrith, thanks for coming. Katie as well. Cindy, thanks for people joining our chat. Remember, we are going to have another Sleuth TV Live, probably around the 12th or so, where we're going to get into the State of DORA DevOps report, and I might sneak in one or two updates on the Sleuth Automations front, because I'd imagine we're going to have a lot of cool stuff to talk about by then. And also stay tuned. Come join and subscribe to our channel. We have a lot of videos coming out. We're going to be doing more as we talk about some of the cool stuff that we're doing. So again, trying to help you, help your team get better. That's what we're all about. Thank you again, Dylan, my guest. Thank you for you attending. Feel free to give us comments, and I will see you next time. I'm not going to say same bat time because it is going to be a few weeks later, but definitely same bat channel. Till then.